It's no secret a lot of people in the media don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't like a lot of them, as he makes clear just about every day on Twitter, where he punches back against journalists who take shots at him. And look, Trump says lots of controversial things. That helps his campaign most of the time, and it also gives journalists something to argue about most of the time. But what happens when it's the executive editor of a news site who just completely and totally goes off on Trump? That's what's happened at the Daily Beast, a news and opinion site. The executive editor is Noah Shachtman, and on Twitter, he had this to say. He actually called for a boycott of Trump's businesses. Here are some of his tweets. Shachtman says, "Let's get real. If you're renting in a Trump building or playing a round of golf at a Trump resort, you are supporting racism and neo-fascism." He says, "Seems to me it's time for a boycott of Trump's businesses and a public calling out of those who choose to work with him." 6 months ago," he says in yet another tweet, "you could say you were doing business with Trump without endorsing his views. 8,000 racist moments later, that's no longer feasible." All right, I'll give him a little hyperbole on the math there. Noah Shachtman, who once worked for the 1992 Clinton campaign, obviously leans left, obviously doesn't like Donald Trump, sees many of Trump's statements as racist, and he's entitled to his opinion. But what about the fact that he is the executive editor for news at the Daily Beast, where I worked a few years ago, and it was a left-leaning site then, but tried to be fair. And I like a lot of the people at the Daily Beast, and I like a lot of the columnists, and I think the Daily Beast tries to be a serious journalistic enterprise. But this is just beyond the pale. Donald Trump, whether Noah Shachtman or anybody else likes it or not, is a Republican frontrunner. And it is fine to take him on, and it is fine to challenge his statements, and it is fine to report aggressively on him. But when you are calling for a boycott of his businesses because you think he is such a racist and such a neo-fascist, you are crossing the line into being an activist. And it would make anybody reading the Daily Beast wonder about every single story referring to or regarding Donald Trump, whether this is now informed by the views of the executive editor. Now, the editor of the site is John Avlon. He's a CNN contributor. I know him pretty well. I think he's a fair-minded guy. He has come to the defense of his executive editor. Here's some of what he tweeted. First, all beasts are entitled to their own opinion on social media. That's true. But you're the executive editor of a journalistic organization. You are, in part, speaking for the organization, whether you like it or not. That's why the CNN Global Affairs correspondent, Elise Labott, just got suspended for 2 weeks for tweeting her opinion attacking the House legislation on tightening security checks for Syrian refugees. John Avlon also says, a core part of our mission is to stand up to bullies, bigots, and hypocrites. Okay, that now John Avlon says pretty clearly that he finds Donald Trump to be in that category: a bully, a bigot, and a hypocrite. And then because Glenn Beck's site The Blaze had written about Shachtman's tweets, Avlon goes on to say, "We sure as hell aren't going to get lectured on journalistic ethics by a site run by a professional polarizer like Glenn Beck." All right, I'm not here to lecture anybody. I do think it's a fair question. If one of your top news executives is not only savaging Donald Trump, but is calling for people to not do business with Donald Trump, and is saying that he, in his opinion, is going to call out any business that does have some kind of commercial relationship with Donald Trump, down to the level of people playing golf on his golf courses, that doesn't sound to me like the way a journalist operates. It even may cross the line for how a commentator operates when you're calling for a boycott. Again, he's got free speech. If everybody at the Daily Beast thinks this is fine, I just want people to be aware of it because it might affect how you look at things when you read that website, at least as it involves Donald J. Trump.